From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. I think we have a cool show ahead for you tonight. We're going to talk with the author of Dream Again. It's the story of Isaiah Austin. If you're not familiar with Isaiah, it is a great story. Matt Litton will join us here in studio to talk about that book, Dream Again, that was just released at the end of June, and you can get a copy of that. But just a great story about faith and courage and all the things that Isaiah had to overcome just to get to Baylor, where he became one of the best players in college basketball. And then, unfortunately, his basketball career was cut short by a disease that not many people have any idea about. And so we'll talk to Matt about all of that and his interactions with Isaiah, and basically just this story of courage and tragedy and basketball and human triumph at the same time. So we'll get to that coming up during the course of the show. We'll also hear from some of the Predators prospects at development camp. They've got all their top draft picks over the last couple of years really in town this week working out. David Poyle has put so much emphasis on the draft the last few years because they've had to trade away so many pieces in recent years as they made playoff runs. They've really tried to restock, and so this camp is about as loaded as we've seen in quite some time for the Predators when it comes to development camp. You've got Kevin Fiala, who was a number 11 overall pick last year. He talked today about how he expects to be here in Nashville next year. He would just be 19 years of age if he does that. You've got Jimmy Vesey, who's probably the best college hockey player going right now at Harvard. He's certainly in the system, and another guy that they're taking a good long look at this week. So we'll hear from some of those guys coming up. Don't forget, they're going to have an open scrimmage on Saturday, 11 o'clock. All the guys at the prospect camp, they'll be down at the Ford Ice Center. If you haven't been out there, great new facility, been open about a year, and they will have a scrimmage open to the public. So if you're missing some hockey, you know, it's been a couple months since the Predators were on the ice. If you're missing hockey and you want a cool activity for a very hot Saturday coming up, go on down to the Ford Ice Center and check out that scrimmage on Saturday morning. Also going on tonight, you got Sonny Gray on the bump for the A's, newly named All-Star Sonny Gray. Pretty cool what Tim Corbin obviously has done with the Vanderbilt baseball program, and now 2 All-Stars out of that program just this year. David Price will make his 5th appearance for the American League. Sonny Gray elected to his first All-Star game. Long time coming for a guy who, in my opinion, has been an All-Star the last couple of years for the A's, finally getting his shot to go there. You got Wimbledon going on, and kind of some crazy news that we should probably bring up from the world of golf. Scott Stallings, former Tennessee Tech star, suspended today 90 days by the PGA for PEDs, violating the substance abuse policy on the PGA Tour, but maybe not as egregious as it initially sounds on the surface, because we all know about the golf honor code. You know, you accidentally hit the ball, you have a penalty, you got to report on yourself, right? Well, Stallings has been battling fatigue, as he puts it, for a better part of a year, maybe a little bit longer. And late last summer, a doctor recommended a drug for him to take that should combat that. And he started taking it last winter, and a couple months later realized, uh-oh, this might not be allowed under the PGA Tour rules. So he turned himself in. He used the golf honor code, turned himself in, and the PGA comes down today and slaps him with a first offense violation for 90 days. The good news is, because of his win last season, he's got an automatic exemption into next season, so he's set to go for the 2015-2016 season, which starts in October. But he's now going to miss the rest of this year, including all of the FedEx Cup playoffs, so a tough blow for him. But again, our big thing tonight, we're going to talk about the book Dream Again, a story of faith, courage, and the tenacity to overcome. It's the Isaiah Austin story. The author, Matt Litton, is here with us in studio. Matt, thanks for coming in. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Let's just talk about this. Isaiah Austin played at Baylor. A lot of people would know that, but You're a Nashville guy, so how does a Nashville guy get caught up with Isaiah Austin and write this book?
That's a neat story. You know, in my family, we're all big basketball fans, so we were actually a little familiar with Isaiah as a player following his college career. But a good friend of mine named Kyle was traveling in Los Angeles and happened to have coffee with Isaiah's agent, and Isaiah's agent said, hey, you know, we want to write a book about this remarkable story. Do you know anybody that has a basketball background? And so, you know, I spent some time in public education and spent 10 years coaching, and he said, I know just the guy. And so, you know, most of the viewers will be familiar with Isaiah from the 2014 NBA draft. You know, I think that night, I think it was after the 6th or 7th pick, Adam Silver walked up on stage and he announced, you know, that with the next pick in the NBA draft, that the NBA was going to select Isaiah, first honorary pick in the history of the NBA. And I think sports fans will probably remember how inspiring Isaiah was and what he had to say that night. And a lot of people, I think he encouraged a lot of people. If you're a huge basketball fan, you'll remember Isaiah, his sophomore year at Baylor. He was making quite an impact, but there was a special on ESPN where Isaiah had gone blind in his right eye. And he continued to play basketball, but he kind of kept it a secret. And midway through that sophomore season, ESPN ran a special, and Isaiah shared this with his teammates, and most of them knew. But he came out and told the basketball community, hey, you know, I'm playing blind. And I think that's the point in Isaiah's life where people really locked in, and he began to realize that he had a lot of influence to inspire people, playing with a disability. And Isaiah would never want you to call it a disability. In fact, he told me one time, he said, you know, my goal was to play in a way that no one would be able to identify that I had a disability. But and so through that evening, I think everybody kind of locked into that story. And so, you know, I came in to write the book with Isaiah. And it's interesting, when I first talked with him, it was just several weeks removed from finding out that he has Marfan syndrome, and this is what ended his basketball career. Marfan syndrome is a disease that affects the connective tissue in your body. It can affect, you know, your eyes. It can affect your heart. And in Isaiah's case, you know, it affected a lot of parts of his body, but mainly his heart. And it made playing basketball for him, you know, a very dangerous proposition, and so he had to walk away from the game. And he received that news just 5 nights before the NBA draft. It was really a crushing moment for anybody, right. Let alone a 20-year-old kid who had worked so hard his whole life. And so when I first met Isaiah, I think the thing that I was taken with immediately, and one of the wonderful aspects of the book, is that he had been on the road. He responded to this adversity in a positive way, which was no accident. You know, he grew up in a family that was grounded in faith, and furthermore, they were really grounded in this idea that we're here to help each other. You know, and so Isaiah kind of locked into that. But when we first talked, Steve, he was really dealing with the grief of this. You know, it was just several weeks since he had found out the news, since the NBA draft, and he had been out talking. One of the first stories that he shared with me was his opportunity to meet President Obama. That was just a day or two before we talked. And so I was immediately taken with this young man who had really taken a punch in the mouth. I mean, life had hit him hard. And, you know, I think he responded in a way that, you know, for a 20-year-old, I know people twice Isaiah's age, maybe 3 times Isaiah's age, that don't respond to adversity in that way. You know, he took this illness and he said, you know, he knew he couldn't control it, but he decided that he could control his attitude about it, and he could control his actions in response to it. And which was, again, no accident. If you read the book, I mean, Isaiah's story is a story of facing all different types of adversity. And so I was immediately taken with this story as something that could really inspire people.
Did he, in that first meeting, realize just how inspiring his story could be and how good of a story it could turn out to be?
You know, I don't think I did. And I follow basketball very close. I think that he was still, you know, we got to write together, and you know, Isaiah being the author and me being the writer, I was helping him put this story together. And as we wrote together, I began to realize that he really was dealing with the grief of this situation. But the remarkable thing about Isaiah is he was so focused on helping other people that even when he didn't feel like it, he would get out there to raise money for Marfan's awareness, you know, to really bring to bring light to this disease. You know, the thing about what he's doing is there are a lot of people that don't know they have Marfan's. It's not something that a lot of people screen for, and it can be deadly. And he was real focused on that part of it and raising money for research. And I think as we worked together, he kind of grew into this person who's really focused on helping people who were dealing with any type of adversity in their life, helping them learn how to dream again.
You talk about that special moment when Adam Silver made him the only honorary pick of the NBA at the NBA draft in the history of the NBA draft. Did Isaiah have an idea that was coming, and how special was that, and I guess a sense of closure to his basketball career?
Well, listen, the neat part of the story is that he had no idea. Adam Silver's people reached out to Isaiah and his family and said, hey, we would like you to be there on draft night. And they got him a table. But when you watch that evening, the emotions that he's experiencing, he had no idea. And Adam Silver has gone steps beyond that. I mean, Isaiah is such a remarkable young man. He's good on camera. He's great with kids, great with people. And the NBA actually offered him a full-time job when he graduates from Baylor University, which was a really neat part of that whole night that I'm not sure everybody knows. In Baylor University, Scott Drew, the Baylor family there, you know, they immediately took care of his scholarship. And so when I flew to Baylor to spend time with Isaiah, I met a young man with a servant heart. One of his coaches told me, he said, you know, we will play, of our 30 games that we play this year, there will not be one time where there is a guy on the floor who's better than Isaiah Austin, and he'll be sitting on the bench with us. And I've been around athletes a long time, but the thing that took me back immediately that was just really special about him, you know, Isaiah was focused on his teammates. He was there 2 hours early and texting his buddies, and he was getting them there to work out. And working out for Isaiah is he's tenacious. And the other thing that impressed me about him is Isaiah was the one wiping up sweat from the floor, getting water for his teammates. You know, if somebody would get upset, Isaiah was the one talking to him. And so, you know, his sense of humor and just his positive attitude, he was making a huge impact on the Baylor team this season, even not being able to play. So.
It's a really remarkable story. The book is Dream Again. Matt Litton is the author. He is also our guest tonight here on SportsLine. We got to take our first break. We'll come back, much more to get to, so stay with us right here on News Channel 5+.